Joining us now, former Fulton County Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. Mr. Wade, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to take you back to this timeline. Of course, we had the January 6th insurrection. We all know that was about. There was the January 3rd Donald Trump call to Brad Raffensperger that was released on January 3rd, 2021. Fani Willis then takes office January 1st, 2021, and she begins her investigation into the attempts to steal the election in Georgia on February 10. So she opens up this criminal investigation, and then in November of that year, November 1, 2021, she hires you as special prosecutor. Now, that is the timeline, but I want to show you a piece of sound that is of someone else she tried to hire. Right. And this is actually the former governor of your state, and this was his reaction to the attempts by DA Willis to hire him. Take a listen.
Were you approached by the district attorney of Fulton County, Fani Willis, about being a special prosecutor?
I was. I don't recall the exact date, but I know it was sometime in 2021. I told DA Willis I'd lived with bodyguards for 4 years, and I didn't like it. And I wasn't going to live with bodyguards for the rest of my life.
Governor Roy Barnes refused to take the job. Why did you take it? You were in private practice doing well. Why did you take the job?
I recall that that interview period with Governor Barnes vividly, and his reasons for refusing to take that job were, in fact, the salary was a bit low, but more importantly, the threats that he knew that he would have to deal with. Had I known the extent of passion from both sides, I don't know that I think that I would have prepared a lot better. Having to live with, as he stated, bodyguards.
Is that your reality, that you had to get bodyguards? Did you get death threats?
That is exactly my reality. You know, the severity of the threats that I still get, having to empty my voicemail 3 and 4 times a day, having to have security with me at my office. And, you know, let me say this. I love my fraternity brothers, Alpha Phi Alpha. I love them. They were offering to send armed guards to protect me just so that I could get some sleep. Mm-hmm. And it much needed. These people were doing things unimaginable. At certain points, I had to call my parents to make certain that they didn't change my name, and I didn't know about it. My children couldn't come to visit me because of the danger that they would face. But those threats are real.
Mm-hmm. And so you were brought into the case, and you came in November 1st, and this was after, you know, there was the investigation. There's a special grand jury that then gets impaneled in May of 2022. So that's just the basic timeline. And because this is really what became an issue in attempting to remove DA Willis and yourself from the case, at the time that you were brought on to the case, from then through the time of the grand jury, before you were brought on, did you have a personal relationship with, or a personal intimate relationship with DA Willis? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Our relationship was professional. Our relationship grew organically over time. It was something that was not deliberate or intentional. I made the statement earlier that workplace romances are as American as apple pie. Right? That was not to make light of the situation. Mm-hmm. That was just to say that it could happen to anyone. Of course, we're not speaking in extremes. It doesn't happen to everyone, but it's a thing that happens. It's a thing that happened to us. I felt like we dealt with it in a manner that was professional. We kept our personal lives personal and private. And I still believe that it had no place in the courtroom, not now and not then.
Now, this issue became an issue in your divorce. You filed for divorce literally the day after you were brought on as special prosecutor. And this became an issue to the point where your former wife tried to subpoena and drag D.A. Willis into the case. And so, you know, the contention that she was making was that this was an ongoing relationship that began before. So you say that absolutely it did not begin before you became special prosecutor.
Absolutely not. And I think the contention that she was making at the time was not that it began before then, was that there was some funds that were used, marital funds that were used in order to entertain her.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now let's talk about this, because the case to try to remove D.A. Willis and to remove yourself, it involved, I mean, to me, this is not anyone's business. Everyone's personal life, as you said, workplace romances happen. But can you tell me when in the timeline of this case, because you had a grand jury that was impaneled later in 2022, about when did the relationship take place?
So let me say this. I needed to be clear that when the relationship began, my then wife was not in the home. She had moved to Texas, and we had been separated for a period of time. We did not have a relationship. She knew and I knew by agreement that as soon as our youngest child graduated high school and matriculated into college, then we would then formally file the divorce. Mm-hmm. Now, as it relates to your question specifically, you're asking when it took place from indictment or...
Well, I mean, we know that it took place, obviously, during the time when you two were working together on prosecuting this case or on advancing the grand jury case. I guess, more importantly, did it give you pause? You're in the midst of really the most high-profile case probably of either of your lives. This is a former president, potential future president of the United States. Did it give you pause to say, you know what, this is too risky?
It absolutely did. It absolutely did. She and I had conversations about that when we felt as though the relationship was going to a place that could potentially become an issue with our work. Then we sat and we had a conversation and we did what was necessary to protect the sanctity of the case.
Now, given, obviously, divorces are contentious, we know how that can sometimes play out. At some point, your former business partner, your former law partner, who was also your divorce lawyer, started communicating with attorneys from the Trump campaign. And obviously, one of those attorneys is the one that brought the case that ultimately resulted in you ended up leaving the case. Do you believe that there was political collusion, that your former law partner, your former divorce attorney, was colluding deliberately and politically with the Trump campaign or with Trump world in order to upend the case?
I do believe that. I believe that 110%. I'm not certain why or when or how that communication started. But I'm very proud to be an attorney. I take pride in it. I don't like lawyer jokes. I think that's to be an attorney is something to aspire to, right? So I take it very seriously. I don't feel as though his relationship was consistent with someone who takes their legal oath seriously. Yeah. There was collusion, a lot of it.
And you believe that bringing this issue out, which was a private divorce proceeding, and bringing it into the public was for the purposes of obstructing this prosecution specifically?
Absolutely, absolutely. I believe that the focus of this entire, I will call it a charade, something that had nothing to do with the legal proceedings. That indictment speaks for itself. Nowhere on that indictment is the name Nathan Wade. Nowhere on that indictment is the name Fani Willis.
And to that point, when Judge McAfee actually cleared you of, well, essentially said that they found nothing in your actions or in D.A. Willis's actions that in any way interfered with the case, so that the case could go on, but that one of you had to actually leave the case, and you made that decision. Did you walk into that hearing prepared to resign from the case?
I walked into the hearing prepared to, and being very careful here because this issue is before the Court of Appeals, and I don't want to do anything to jeopardize their decision making. But going into that hearing, I had every confidence that that trier of fact, Judge McAfee, would follow the law and make decisions consistent with the law, not consistent with feelings or conjecture or the dicta that he used in his order.
Yeah.
I just...
When you say dicta, you mean some of his more personal comments about D.A. Willis, because he didn't have to add it. He could have simply said, I find for the district attorney she can remain on the case, but he added some additional comments about the odor of mendacity and other things. Do you think that was unneeded?
I don't think that it was necessary. I think many legal analysts and experts have said that. That entire piece of his order was, I think, just to prove a point. Judges have a tough job, and I think that in doing their job and being fair and impartial, sometimes personal feelings come out, and I think that may have been what we saw there. And an odor of mendacity, in all fairness, could come from a lack of understanding. We could have cultural differences. I may not understand why a certain culture does a certain thing. So it could be suspicious to me.
Right.
So we'll give him that benefit.
Okay, well, when we come back, I want to show you, speaking of personal feelings, some of the things that Donald Trump has had to say about yourself and D.A. Willis. We'll do that when we come back.
But something happened when that happened, and then I got indicted again, and then I got indicted again, and then I got indicted by Fani with her boyfriend. I call her Fani Wade. Her boyfriend's name is Wade. And she hired her because of his expertise in this particular form of law, right? He was an expert. He never did it before, but he was an expert. He got paid almost $1 million.
We are back now with former Fulton County Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. Do you care to respond?
So I have to be very careful here. He is a named defendant on the indictment, and we don't want to get ourselves into a situation where the appeals court is having to weigh in on something that I've said, and I've jeopardized the case. So I will say this. I respect his right to voice his opinion. Her name is Fani Willis. My name is Nathan Wade. We are not married. Having said that, there's something special about individuals who say things just for attention or just to get a reaction. My reaction is simply this: thank you.
Well, there you go. And this case has been so deeply racialized by that person, by Donald Trump. And this case, because it's Fulton County, because this is a county that is run by African Americans, where the DA is black, she was just overwhelmingly reelected, D.A. Willis, where obviously you're African American. That has to play a role in it, does it not? I mean, we saw what happened with Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, the racialized attacks on them. How much of this case do you believe has become racialized, and how do you think that that's impacted the way people perceive it?
So, ironically, in his clip, he mentions being paid almost $1 million, I think was his exact verbiage. I was paid, to be exact, $250 an hour. My hours were capped. He's paying his lawyers $500,000 a month.
Yeah.
$500,000 a month.
Given that the thing that Donald Trump has done very well in all of these cases that he faces, whether it is the document theft case or whether everything other than the case in New York that Alvin Bragg has brought against him, is delay. The whole purpose of bringing this case against yourself and Fani Willis to throw you off the case was to delay it. Do you believe this case will ever go to trial?
Oh, absolutely. This case is going to trial. I believe that
before the election?
That day of reckoning is coming. I do not believe that it'll go before the election.
Okay.
The Court of Appeals, they have a job to do.
Sure. When
that'll happen, I don't know. Certainly not trying to opine as to what they'll do.
You don't have to try. Can you? Are you able to tell me? You know, given obviously your connection to the case, what you think is the strongest piece of evidence in this case?
I am not able to tell you
I had
that,
to try.
but I
wrong.
respect you for trying
Yeah,
that.
absolutely had to try. Let's talk about this because, you know, we did see that you did attend the victory party for DA Willis. She overwhelmingly won her primary election. How would you characterize your relationship now?
Oh, we're the best of friends. We're great friends. Being attacked this way, the only other person on the planet who knows what I'm going through, and I know what she's going through. We communicate daily. You know, during the course of the prosecution, when I was a part of the team, we talked all the time, but we talked about the case. It was about business. Now there's been a shift in the communication, and it's more about, hey, how are you handling the pressure? Mm-hmm. Or is your family okay? Nathan, are your children okay? Mm-hmm. I heard that there was something going on with your divorce. Is the situation there okay? You know, and my response to her, just as hers is to me, is a candid one. I'm doing fine. I'm keeping up with all my responsibilities, contrary to what people believe. Mm-hmm. I have not shirked any responsibilities. I've paid spousal support. I don't have minor children, so there's no reason to pay any child support. I am doing everything that I am supposed to do and still dealing with the threats that are coming daily.
As an alpha man should. You mentioned it, so I have to support that. And, you know, I guess my kind of closing off question here is that, you know, I think that for the United States, for a lot of people who are watching what's happening with Donald Trump, with the former president, there is a sense that justice just eludes him. That it doesn't seem possible to bring him to justice. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that he is somebody who is going to elude justice ultimately?
I feel, again, that day of reckoning is coming. I think that Fulton County jurors are intelligent. They are attentive. They will listen to the facts and the evidence, and they will render a verdict that speaks the truth in this case, based upon the facts and the evidence, no matter what.
Nathan Wade, thank you very much. Really
Thank you for having me. And let me say this. I know that you'll have the opportunity to do it, but I will not. Memorial Day is coming.
Yes.
I want to say shout out to the veterans, specifically my father, who's a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much for adding that. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.